The Phoenix Project. A story of transformation. Sarah Martinez stared at the eviction notice taped to her apartment door, her hands trembling. 3 months behind on rent. The single mother of 2 had lost her job at the manufacturing plant 6 months ago when it closed down, and since then, life had been a downward spiral. Her savings were gone. Her car had been repossessed last week. And now this. "Mom, what's that paper?" asked 7-year-old Emma, tugging at her sleeve. 10-year-old Marcus stood behind his sister, his eyes to knowing for his age. He'd learned to read his mother's face, and right now, it told him everything he needed to know. Just some mail. "Baby," Sarah whispered, peeling the notice off and crumpling it in her fist. But as she unlocked the door and watched her children walk inside, something inside her snapped not in the feared, but in defiance. She'd been wallowing in self-pity for months, sending out resumes and waiting for someone to save her, but nobody was coming. That night, after putting the kids to bed, Sarah sat at her kitchen table with a notepad and pen. She wrote at the top, "The Phoenix Project rising from the ashes." She didn't know exactly what it meant yet, but she knew she was done being a victim of circumstances. She had 30 days to figure out how to make money, keep her home, and show her children that their mother was a fighter. At 2 a.m., she was still awake, researching every possible option. That's when she stumbled across an article about a woman who debuilt a successful cleaning business from nothing. Sarah had cleaned houses before, years ago. She was good at it. Could she do this? The doubt crept in immediately, but she pushed it back. She had to try. Block 2. The unlikely mentor Marcus Rivera had built his empire from scratch. Now 72, he owned a chain of successful businesses across the city and was known for his tough love approach to mentorship. He'd recently posted on a community board offering free business advice to someone hungry enough to actually listen. Sarah had almost deleted her response, emailed 3 times before finally hitting send. To her shock, Marcus replied within an hour. "Come to my office tomorrow at 6 a.m. Don't be late. Don't waste my time." The next morning, exhausted and terrified, Sarah arrived at 5:45 a.m. Marcus was already there, sitting behind a massive oak desk, his steel-gray eyes assessing her. "Tell me why you're here," he said. "No pleasantries. I need to build a business in 30 days, or my kids and I are on the street," Sarah said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Why should I help you?" Marcus leaned back. "I get 50 emails a week from people who want handouts. What makes you different?" Sarah met his gaze. "Because I'm not asking for a handout. I'm asking for a roadmap. I'll do the work. Every single hour of it. I just need someone to show me the way." Something flickered in Marcus's eyes, recognition, perhaps of a younger version of himself. "All right, here's the deal. I'll give you 1 hour every morning for the next 30 days. I'll teach you everything I know about building a business from nothing, but you follow my instructions exactly. No excuses, no shortcuts. You fail, you're out." "Deal." Sarah didn't hesitate. "Deal? Good. We start with the hardest lesson first. Getting comfortable with rejection. Today, you're going to knock on 50 doors and offer your cleaning services. I want you back here tomorrow at 6 a.m. with a report on every single conversation." Block 3. The door-to-door gauntlet. Sarah's feet ached. It was 4 p.m., and she'd knocked on 37 doors. 23 people hadn't answered. Of the 14 who did, 12 had said no, so May Politelli, others rudely slamming doors in her face. One woman had laughed at her. Another had told her she looked too desperate, and it was off. Each rejection stung, but Sarah kept going. Door 38. A tired-looking man in his 50s answered. "I'm offering professional cleaning services." Sarah began her pitch, trying to sound confident. "First session is half price." "Not interested." He started to close the door. "Wait," Sarah said, surprising herself. "May I ask why?" "I'm trying to improve my pitch." The man paused, perhaps touched by her honesty. "Look, lady, I've had 3 cleaning services in the past 2 years. They all start great and then get sloppy. Why would you be any different?" Sarah thought fast. "Because my kids are watching me. Because, for me, This isn't just a job, it's our survival. I'll give you my word. If you're not completely satisfied, I'll give you a full refund and clean your house again for free. You have nothing to lose. The man studied her for a long moment. All right. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. But I'm holding you to that guarantee. Door 50, Sarah had landed 3 clients. 3 seemed like nothing, but as she walked home that evening, she realized something had shifted inside her. She'd faced rejection and survived. She'd found her voice. She'd taken action. When she reported to Marcus the next morning, she expected praise. Instead, he said, 3 clients. That's a start. Now you need to blow their minds so they become your marketing team. Here's what you're going to do differently than every other cleaner. Block 4. The excellent standard. Sarah arrived at her first client's house on Saturday with supplies. Marcus had taught her to acquire cheaply but effectively, but she'd also brought something extra. A detailed checklist, before and after photos capability on her phone, and a follow-up survey. She didn't just clean the house, she transformed it. She moved furniture to vacuum underneath. She cleaned inside the microwave, behind the toilet, along the baseboards, inside cabinet fronts. She worked for 6 hours on a job she'd quoted for 3, never watching the clock. When the homeowner, Mrs. Chun, came home, she stood in her kitchen speechless. I've lived here for 15 years, she finally said. It's never looked like this. Ever. I hope it meets your expectations, Sarah said, showing her the before and after photos. I'll be sending you a brief survey to see how I can improve even more. Mrs. Chun shook her head in amazement. Improve? Honey, you just earned yourself a regular client, and I'm telling everyone I know about you. That night, Sarah was so exhausted she could barely move, but Marcus's words echoed in her mind. In a world where everyone does the minimum, doing the maximum makes you unforgettable. Excellence isn't expensive, it's a decision. By the end of week 2, those 3 clients had turned into 12 through referrals. Sarah was working 16-hour days cleaning during the day, responding to inquiries at night, learning business strategy from Marcus each morning. Her body screamed for rest, but her spirit was more alive than it had been in years. Marcus reviewed her numbers. You're making progress, but you're also trading time for money, and you only have so many hours. Week 3, we're going to talk about scaling. You're going to hire your first employee. Block 5. The power of partnership. I can't afford to hire someone, Sarah protested. I'm barely keeping the lights on. Marcus fixed her with that penetrating stare. That's broke thinking. You're not hiring an expense, you're investing in growth. You find someone hungry like you were. You train them to your standard, and you take on twice the clients. Matt. Cyril spent 3 days interviewing before she met Diana, a 60-year-old woman who'd lost her husband and her pension in the same year. She was overqualified, having run household staff for wealthy families for decades, but she needed work, and fast. Why would you want to work for me? Sarah asked, feeling like an imposter. I just started this business 3 weeks ago. Diana smiled. Because I've worked for a lot of people who inherited their success. I'd rather work for someone who's building something real. Someone who actually appreciates what this work means. They shook hands, and Sarah taught Diana everything Marcus had taught her: the attention to detail, the before and after documentation, the follow-up surveys, the guarantee. Diana absorbed it all and added her own expertise, teaching Sarah tricks from her decades of experience. Within a week, they were a formidable team. Sarah handled the business side, marketing, client relations, scheduling, while Diana took on more of the actual cleaning, training Sarah in advanced techniques. They worked in tandem on bigger jobs, moving through houses like a choreographed dance. The referrals multiplied. Sarah's daily morning sessions with Marcus evolved into strategic planning meetings. You're not a cleaning lady anymore, he told her. You're a business owner. Start thinking like one. By the end of week 3, Sarah had 18 regular clients and had made enough money to pay not only her back rent, but next month's rent in advance. For the first time in 6 months, she could breathe. Block 6. The crisis of confidence. Everything fell apart. On day 24, a new client, Mrs. Patterson, called Sarah, screaming that Diana had broken an expensive vase and that she was calling her lawyer. The vase was supposedly worth $3,000 more money than Sarah had in her account. Sarah rushed over to find Mrs. Patterson furious and Diana in tears. "I barely touched it," Diana insisted. "It was already cracked. I moved it to clean and it just fell apart." Mrs. Patterson wasn't hearing it. "You people are all the same, careless and unprofessional. I want compensation now, or I'm suing." Sarah felt the old panic rising. This could destroy everything she'd built. All the momentum, all the progress gone. Because of one accident. She wanted to run, to give up, to accept that maybe she was never meant to succeed. Instead, she took a breath and called Marcus. "I need your advice. Now." 30 minutes later, they sat in Marcus's office. "Tell me what happened," they sighed calmly. After hearing the story, Marcus nodded. "First, you're going to offer to pay for the vases. Installments if necessary. Second, you're going to investigate whether it was actually your fault. Third, you're going to learn from this and create a protocol for handling valuable items. But here is what you're really not going to do. Panic and throw away everything you've built. But what if she sues? What if this ruins my reputation?" Marcus leaned forward. "Let me tell you something about crisis. Every successful person I know has faced moments like this moments, where one problem threatens to undo everything. The difference between those who make it and those who don't is simple. The winners keep their head, fix what they can, and keep moving forward." Sarah investigated, spoke to other clients about Mrs. Patterson, and discovered the woman had a reputation for making false claims. Armed with this information and Diana's spotless record with other clients, Sarah stood her ground, offering a fair settlement, but not the full amount. Block 7. The community effect word of Sarah's professionalism in handling the Patterson situation spread through the client network. Instead of destroying her reputation, it enhanced it. People respected that she stood by her employee while still trying to make things right. New clients called specifically because they'd heard about her integrity, but it was Marcus who showed her the next level. "You've built a good small business," he said on day 26. "Now let me show you how to build something bigger. You're going to create a community." He taught her about networking, about showing up at local business meetings, about partnering with real estate agents who needed homes cleaned before showings, about connecting with elderly clients who needed more than just cleaning, they needed companionship. Sarah started arriving 15 minutes early to clients' homes just to talk, especially with the older clients who lived alone. She remembered birthdays, asked about grandchildren, listened to stories. She wasn't just providing a service, she was building relationships. One client, Mr. Thompson, a widower in his 80s, mentioned he needed help organizing his garage, but couldn't afford extra services. Sarah and Diana showed up on a Sunday, their day off, and did it for free. Mr. Thompson cried and told everyone at his senior center. The senior center called Sarah. Could she speak to their members about starting a business later in life? Sarah, terrified of public speaking, almost said no, but Marcus pushed her. "Your story matters." Share. Italiano. Standing in front of 50 seniors, Sarah shared her journey, the eviction notice, the fear, the 30-day challenge, the setbacks and victories. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. 5 people approached her afterward about hiring her services. 3 wanted to know if she'd mentor them in starting their own businesses. Sarah realized she wasn't just building a business anymore. She was becoming a pillar of her community. Block 8. The decision point on day 29, Sarah had a choice to make. A corporate cleaning company had heard about her reputation and offered to buy her out enough money to solve her immediate problems and provide security for a year. All she had to do was sign the contract and walk away. "What do I do?" she asked Marcus that morning. He shrugged. "That's not my decision." "What do you want?" Sarah thought about the easy path, taking the money, finding a stable job, going back to predictable safety. Then she thought about Diana, who depended on this job. She thought about her clients who'd become friends. She thought about Emma and Marcus, who'd watched their mother transform from defeated to determined. "I want to keep building," she said finally. "I want to see how far this can go." Marcus smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. "Good. Because I have a proposition for you. I'm getting old. I've been looking for someone to take over management of one of my properties, a small office building. The current management company is mediocre. I think you could do better. It would give you stable, recurring income and allow you to expand your business into commercial cleaning. Sarah's heart raced. I don't know anything about property management. You didn't know anything about running a business 30 days ago. You learned you'll learn this too. But here's the catch. This is a partnership, not a handout. You'll have to invest everything you've made this month as your stake. It's a risk. You could lose it all. Sarah looked at the eviction notice she'd kept in her purse as a reminder of where she'd started. 30 days ago, she had nothing to lose. Now she had something, but playing it safe meant staying small. I'm in, she said. Let's do this. Plot 9. The expansion the next 6 months were a blur of growth and challenges. Sarah hired 3 more employees, expanded into commercial cleaning, and took on property management duties for Marcus's building. Diana became her operations manager. Together, they created Phoenix Cleaning and Services, a company built on excellence, integrity, and community. But success brought new problems. Employees called in sick. Equipment broke down. A competitor spread rumors about her. Clients complained about scheduling conflicts. There were days Sarah wanted to quit. Days she missed the simplicity of just her and Diana cleaning houses. During one particularly rough week, Marcus found her crying in her car. This is too much, she sobbed. I'm failing at everything. No, Marcus said firmly. You're succeeding at everything. You're just uncomfortable with the weight of leadership. Every level of success has new problems. The question is on whether you face challenges it is. Whether you grow big enough to handle them. He shared his own story, how he'd come to America with nothing, built and lost 3 businesses before finally succeeding, buried a child, survived cancer, and kept going. Success isn't a destination, he said. It's a decision you make every single day to show up, despite the difficulty. Sarah wiped her tears and got back to work. She implemented systems, improved communication, hired a part-time bookkeeper, and most importantly, she learned to delegate. She couldn't do everything herself anymore, and that was okay. By the end of the year, Phoenix Cleaning and Services had 23 employees and had expanded into 3 neighboring cities. Sarah moved her family into a real house with a yard. Emma and Marcus had their own rooms for the first time in their lives. But Sarah never forgot where she started. She kept that crumpled eviction notice in a frame on her office wall. Remember, Block 10. The full circle 2 years after starting her business. Sarah stood in front of a room full of people at the community center. Marcus sat in the front row, now 74, and officially retired, though he still advised Sarah weekly. Diana sat beside him, now a co-owner of the company. Emma and Marcus' her children sat proudly next to an empty seat reserved for someone special. 2 years ago, I was desperate, broke, and convinced I was a failure. Sarah began. I had 30 days to figure out how to keep a roof over my children's heads. I met a mentor who taught me that success isn't about circumstances, it's about decisions. It's about showing up when you don't feel like it. It's about excellence when mediocrity would be easier. It's about community when isolation would be simpler. She looked at the audience, other single mothers, people who'd lost jobs, immigrants, seniors, all people facing their own versions of the eviction notice. I started the Phoenix Project not knowing if I could succeed. I just knew I had to try, and trying changed everything. Sarah introduced a new initiative, the Phoenix Project Mentorship Program. She would personally mentor 10 people over the next year, teaching them everything Marcus had taught her about building a business from nothing. No charge, just commitment. Who's ready to rise from their own ashes? She asked. Every hand in the room went up as Sarah began explaining the program. The door opened and a woman walked in, Mrs. Patterson, the client who'd accused Diana of breaking the vase. She approached Sarah after the presentation. I owe you an apology, she said quietly. I was going through a difficult time and took it out on you, but I've watched what you've built, and I'm impressed. I'd like to invest in your mentorship program. I want to help fund it. Sarah felt tears pricking her eyes. Full circle. That night, Sarah tucked Emma and Marcus into bed in their comfortable home. "Mom," Emma said, "you're like a superhero." Sarah smiled. "No, baby. I'm just someone who decided that 30 days was enough time to change everything, and it was." She kissed them goodnight and walked to her home office, where she wrote in her journal, "The Phoenix Project, day 730. Still rising."